For those of you who may be unfamiliar with this particular device, I have a question for you. What did people use to listen to music back before there were CD players and iPods? This is it. This is an audio cassette player. And this is an audio cassette. The audio cassettes had many advantages at the time. They were a compact format. They were easy to reproduce. They were easily marketable. At the same time, there were several disadvantages compared to today's digital media. The biggest one being you had to wait for a song to come on. You had to fast forward and rewind. There was no skip button. You couldn't skip from track to track to track or have playlists. Well, you could have playlists, but you'd have to record them manually bit by bit. And there was no such thing as burning. You would actually have to, instead of burning the files onto a disc and you could go ahead and do other stuff, you couldn't do that. You actually had to listen to the cassette for at least the first song and possibly the last song, just to make sure everything was working okay when you were recording these. Because the tape format, it's just not as quick. It's actually, compared to today's formats, you would consider it to be the snail mail of music, per se. And essentially, the cassettes, as I mentioned earlier, did run in these cassette players. Here, I'll go ahead and show you. What you would do is you would open this up, and you would just stick this in like that and like that. This particular cassette player is the Sony Walkman, I believe, hang on a second, yeah, WM-FX193. This is a radio cassette player, which for all intents and purposes was packaged thusly, in a vertical stance. You have your play, hang on. Yeah, okay. Play, rewind, fast forward, and stop. Now, rewind and fast forward, you didn't have a next track and a previous track. You just push this in and the cassette would rewind. I'll demonstrate that. If you can see this, now it's playing. Now I'm going to rewind the tape. So that's fast backwards, and here's fast forwards. Now, if you had an auto reverse cassette player, there were some portable ones that were auto reverse, but a lot of that existed in the car stereos. What that means is you could keep it on side A, and it would and the opposite side would start playing without actually having to flip the tape, and I'll explain how that works in just a moment. This, if you can see the analog tuning dial here, this has a radio on board. This was one of many. This was basically meant as a sports type cassette player, in the sense that it meant for active lifestyles. On this side, you have your various controls, your volume control, volume limiter, headphone, and let's see, what was that last one there? Oh, I'm sorry. The one below the headphone was the volume limiter. The one above is the normal or DX FM mode, and I haven't touched this player in so long that I've completely forgotten what that is. It also comes with a belt clip. Like I said, this is meant for active lifestyles, and this runs on just your average everyday AA batteries. On this side, you may see this little round, right here, this little round thingy. There was a model of this that was available with a rechargeable option, in the sense that you could use rechargeable batteries and charge them while they're in the player. This one doesn't have that. Let's go ahead and take the tape out. This is essentially the inside of a cassette player. Now, I apologize, I'm not going to be able to show you everything because of the lighting. It's kind of awkward. I really should have done this during the day, but, you know, it was Christmas and you don't think about that sort of thing. So yeah, this is basically the inside of a cassette player. These spindles are what the see these holes? As you notice, they just clasp onto these spindles here. And if I hit rewind or fast forward, watch. That's play. And essentially, for the auto-reverse cassette players, you have a pinch roller. In fact, I'll go ahead and push play right here so you can see this. See, that's your magnet right there for reading the tape. Right next to it here is a pinch roller, and that pinches the tape and keeps it in a smooth line along with all these rollers here. There was a second pinch roller on auto-reverse cassette players located here, and the magnet in the auto-reverse players had the capacity to read two sides without having to flip the tape. And a lot of car tape players had this. But yeah, the audio cassette player was the thing back in the 80s and the 90s. As far as 90s CD players did start to take off, though I didn't see them everywhere until at least I didn't see them everywhere until the new millennium. It wasn't until about sometime in the late when was it? I think maybe early 2000 when I got my first CD player, maybe late 90s. But back before that, the tape player was where it was at when it came to music. Tape players nowadays are still being produced, but primarily for dictation purposes, in other words, recording business meetings and the like. You do not have any chance, unless you look on eBay, of finding any music that is on audio cassette anymore. Tape players no longer exist in car stereos. They're no longer existing on shelf stereos. I think CDs are even starting to become phased out. All thanks to our little friend here, the iPod. With this digital generation of downloading music, I think CDs are soon to come to an end too. Anyway, that was a little lesson on the cassette player, as well as a very brief tour of this particular model. Questions and comments are welcome. Thank you for watching, and have